Good morning, I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. Now, a while ago, the YouTube user Ellie asked me about what headphones I use on a day-to-day basis, so I thought that today I would talk a little bit about the headphones that I use, the speakers that I use, and the differences that I find between those two ways of listening to music. I'm not sponsored in any way by any of the brands and companies that I'm going to mention in this video. This is just all my own opinion based on my experiences. I say that as if I'm ever actually offered any sponsorship deals from anyone. But yeah, headphones versus speakers. Now, as I've mentioned before, whenever I'm listening to vinyl, I use a pair of Tannoy Mercury S speakers, which I think are really great. I inherited them from a friend a few years ago. They've got a lovely warm sound to them. They're really good, especially for vocals. The only area that they kind of maybe fall short in a little bit is if you're listening to electronic music or dance music or similar genres to that. But as a generic all-round speaker, they are absolutely brilliant. Now, because they're passive, it means they have to be hooked up to an amplifier, and for that I'm using my old Audiolab 8000A amplifier. A classic piece of relatively vintage gear. It's absolutely awesome though. I've said before that this could basically survive a nuclear holocaust. It is the sturdiest amp ever. I've never really had any problems with it, apart from having to change the fuse in it once in the like 6 or 7 years that I've been using it. And then this is connected to my Project Genie turntable, which, if I'm totally honest, I got because I can remember being massively into Suits a few years ago, and it's the same turntable that Harvey Specter has in his office. Obviously I did some research first before actually getting one, but that's basically the reason that I have that turntable. If you're looking for a mid-budget turntable, it's great. The other most common way that I listen to music is through headphones, and for that my standard pair of everyday walking around headphones is a pair of Bose QC35s. They're absolutely great, best noise cancelling headphones I've ever heard. I've had them for a little over a year now, so I've kind of gotten used to them, and in terms of a general pair of headphones for walking around, listening to music, doing whatever you want to do, they're really fantastic. I also have a pair of Sennheiser HD215s. Now, I don't really use these to listen to music very much. These are more for mixing. They're a bit too bulky to be walking around town listening to music through anyway, although they have been absolutely brilliant. They weren't particularly expensive, and I've been using these for about 7 years and have never had any complaints whatsoever with them. They are getting a bit worn now, especially there, but that's just because I always keep them like on top of the rack here. But doesn't really matter, it's just an aesthetic problem. The sound quality has always been really good when I'm producing music. Now, you might be wondering how I listen to music in the living room if it's not on vinyl, and the answer is that the other speaker in the room is one of these. It's just an Amazon Alexa, and it's pretty fucking annoying a lot of the time. But if you just want to listen to some music casually in the background or stream Spotify, then it does work great. Obviously, no one can claim that this has got some sort of super high fidelity audio quality to it, but for what it does, it works relatively well, and because of the 360-degree design of the thing, the dispersal is pretty effective. Like I said, it's good for casual listening and background music if you're too lazy to kind of use your hands for 5 seconds and turn all of this on, or just have some Post Malone playing in the background when I'm making pasta sauce or washing up. It's also good for annoying your flatmate by cancelling his alarms when you set them on this and leaves the room for a few minutes. That's another thing you can do with it. I've also got an RCA2 auxiliary cable with one of these silly little adapters lying around plugged into one of the inputs on the amp, so if you wanted to hardwire your phone straight into it and play music through the tannoys, then you could. The only other pair of headphones that I use on a regular basis are these, a shitty pair of Apple earpods. We all know that these things are crap, very mid and low mid heavy, but there are lots of occasions when I want to take a pair of headphones with me so I can listen to music, but I don't want to have to carry around something as bulky as that. For example, if I'm going to someone's house for pre-drinks before a night out, I really don't want to have the hassle of carrying with me a pair of over-ear headphones that are just going to be at risk of getting stolen, broken, or damaged, or that I just have to keep in my pocket the whole time or around my neck like an absolute twat. In those situations, a pair of crappy headphones that you don't really care about can really come in useful. In general, listening to music on speakers I find is much more of an event, especially if I'm listening to an LP. Now, it's obviously a much more social way of listening to music, but I find sometimes that if I'm by myself and I'm listening to a record for the first time, I like to put it through the setup, sit down calmly, and just listen to it. I tend to find that when I'm listening to music through speakers, I can think more. It's not as mentally claustrophobic as wearing headphones can be, and it just allows a little bit more of an expansive experience where you can kind of look at the music as a whole product. Headphones, I find, allow you to really tune into the music, and I'm not saying that you can't do that with normal speakers, but especially if you've got some really good noise cancelling, you can completely shut yourself off from the surrounding environment and really listen in detail to the subtle nuances of the music that you're listening to. What I really like to do after listening to a new record for the first time on my hi-fi is the next time I'm going for a walk or going into town or doing anything, listen to it again on these. It can be a bit like hearing that music again for the very first time because headphones just really focus your ears into what's being played. And with that being said, do not listen to music at a stupidly high volume. It's dumb as and you will only regret it later in life. I'm not saying only ever listen to music at a barely audible volume, but for fuck's sake, if you're walking next to like a busy road and you're struggling to hear the music coming through a pair of in-ear headphones, don't turn the volume up until you can hear it. Just wait until you're at a quieter section of that walk and then listen to the music. The hair cells in your ears do not grow back. Once they're gone, they are gone, and you're In conclusion, speakers are, for me, a way of enjoying music in an environmental or a social way, with the obvious exception of listening to a record for the very first time or dedicating a certain time slot in your day to sit down with a bottle of wine on the sofa and listen to something, whereas headphones are more for casual walking around music or listening to something in a very isolated way. Sometimes I'll listen to my headphones in here if I'm in a particular mood. I mean, they're really, really good if I'm watching YouTube videos, having a coffee and a fag on the balcony. Oh, and I've also got these PreSonus Eris E8s behind me, which are great, but those are for production and mixing, not really for listening to music in a casual way. Although if I'm cleaning my room or I'm watching YouTube videos, then of course I'll just use those for the sound. Obviously what I'm saying today is entirely aimed at consuming music rather than creating it, which is an entirely different ballgame. But I'd recommend to people that if you really like listening to music, listen to it on various different things, because you'd be amazed at the difference that headphones and speakers can make to your overall listening experience, as well as the things that you can actually hear within the music. Now, I'm quite lucky in that I've got some pretty decent setups. Not everyone is necessarily going to be able to afford that, but I did spend years and years listening to music on all of the crappy brands that you could buy from like HMV, like Skull Candy headphones, for fuck's sake. And to answer your original question, Ellie, about which headphones you could get that wouldn't break the bank, I would say Sennheiser tend to do pretty good stuff. In terms of a pair of in-ear wired headphones, those are the only ones that I ever bought from places like HMV that would last for absolutely ages. Like there were some that just never ever broke. I just upgraded to something else, but they still had a really, really good sound quality. So yeah, for I think between like 15 and 25 pounds, you can get a pretty good pair of in-ear headphones. Anyway, those are my thoughts on speakers versus headphones. I would love to hear what you think. What equipment are you currently using to listen to music? Do you agree with the things I've said? Do you massively disagree with the things I've said, which is absolutely fine? I'd love to know all of that. So just let me know down in the comment section there. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really do hope that you've enjoyed this. Have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you very soon.